Legislative Day number 3 will now come to order, and I'd like everybody to rise for a moment of silent meditation for Garrett Backish, who is the son of Natalie and Brad Backish, who are both Baltimore County police officers. Natalie, I know personally for over 14 years, and I know that Councilman Crandall knows her as well, is our resource officer on the east side. They sent their oldest son off to college this year with all their hopes and dreams, all his hopes and dreams, and his dream of playing lacrosse for Coker University. And he was in the wrong place at the wrong time several days ago and was shot dead by two people who just entered an establishment and started firing. So please keep that family in your thoughts and your prayers, and his funeral is Friday. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Jones, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the journal for the meeting on January 21st, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The journal is approved. Mr. Secretary, enrollment of the bills were passed by the council and signed by the executive and are hereby enrolled.
Yes, ma'am. Bills 67, 1968, 1969, 1970, 1971, 1972, 19, and 7319 were each passed by the council and signed by the executive.
Well, thank you. Mr. Secretary, will you now read all the bills for introduction?
Yes, Madam Chair. Bill number 5-20, current expense budget, active threat, active assailant grant. Bill 6-20, additions to the Baltimore County landmarks list. This is by request, but it is also sponsored by Councilman Quirk. Bill 7-20 is sponsored by Councilwoman Bevins, zoning regulations, manufacturing light zone use regulations. Bill 8-20, sponsored by Councilman Marks, zoning regulations, uses permitted in the residence apartment elevator to RAE2 zone. And Bill 9-20, also sponsored by Councilman Marks, zoning regulations, tattoo or body piercing establishments.
Thank you. The council will now consider all bills for final reading and vote. Mr. Secretary, first bill, please.
Bill 1-20, personnel law of Baltimore County.
And is Renee Coleman here to testify? Come forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and council members. This request is to create the job of forensic biologist technical leader at the 2M salary grade, which would assist the police forensic lab to remain accredited to process DNA and participate in the FBI CODIS.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Thank you. That was quick. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, next bill, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Bevins?
Aye.
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Next bill, Bill 1-20 is passed. Next bill, please.
Next is Bill 2-20, sponsored by Councilman Patoka, Assembly Areas, Capital Improvement and Capital Construction, Assistive Listening System Requirements.
Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we discussed this at work session, and during work session, I indicated that we are working out amendments with the administration so that it's workable for Baltimore County and also good for the stakeholders across the county. And we're still in that process, so I would ask that we delay the vote on this bill, and so I'd make a motion in that, asking for a delay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to, may I take a roll call vote? Is that okay?
Oh,
You may not.
you may not. Yes, you may.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
The council will now consider all fiscal matters. Extensive testimony was taken at the council's work session on January 28th, 2020. The witnesses who testified at the work session are available to restate their testimony if needed. If a council member has any questions regarding a particular fiscal matter, that matter will be discussed as a separate matter. I will now call upon the secretary to read the cover letter for fiscal matters 1 through 3.
Fiscal Matter 1 is a contract with Northwest Recycling LLC for snow removal and de-icing services. Fiscal Matter 2 is a contract of sale with Pamela Marie Vallis, Karen Elaine Davis, and Melinda A. Hipsley at 300 Church Lane, 21208. And Fiscal Matter 3 is a contract of sale with Rain and Richard Warren of 9922 Pulaski Highway.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve fiscal matters 1 through 3?
So move.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on fiscal matters 1 through 3.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Fiscal matters 1 through 3 are approved. We will now consider miscellaneous business. Mr. Secretary, first item.
First is Resolution 14-20, sponsored by Councilman Crandall. This is a resolution authorizing the property tax refund to Gordon Riffey, who, as a disabled veteran, is entitled to a refund under state law.
It's my honor to move the resolution.
Second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on Resolution 14-20.
Mr. Crandall?
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
Resolution 14-20 is passed. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next is Resolution 21-20, sponsored by Council Members Catch, Marks, and Patoka. Rules of Procedure, Baltimore County Council.
Just taking
Do
this.
you want to do the amendments first?
Oh, I'm sorry. And there's an amendment, Mr. Secretary?
There is an amendment, Madam Chair. The amendment would, the resolution as presently drafted would require that work sessions be convened at 6 p.m. Or later as determined by the chair. The amendment language would change the time to 4 p.m. In lieu of 6 p.m.
And the July 1?
Yes, sir. The amendment also is that the effective date for the change, if passed, would be July 1, 2020. Thank you, Mr. Catch.
Is there a motion to approve the amendment of Resolution 21-20?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on amendment to Resolution 21-20.
We had some discussion, Madam Chair.
Oh, sure. Go
I
ahead.
was sort of taken back by my colleague who have sit here for years and stated how he did not like the fact that we would have last-minute resolutions. We wouldn't like the fact that we rush things through. And when I look at this resolution, which is going to change a practice that this council and this county has had for over 30-plus years, I would think we would take more time than a couple of weeks to pass it through. This is a perfect example of us rushing something through with last-minute amendments. I would ask my colleagues to postpone this resolution so we can give the public more time to weigh in. Right now, they've had 2 weeks. Crickets.
Anyone?
Mr. Jones, do you wish to make a motion? There is
Yeah.
a motion pending, but you can
Okay, I'll
ask
go
to
with this
amend the
motion, then I'll make
Well,
another
no,
motion.
you can ask to amend the motion.
Well, I will not amend this motion. I'll make another motion after this one goes through.
Okay,
There is
so,
a motion and a second on the current amendment.
so, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I ask the Secretary to clarify the amendment or repeat what the amendment does to the resolution?
Yes, the amendment would move, the resolution as currently drafted would indicate that work sessions would convene at 6 p.m. or a later time if designated by the chair, and the amendment would change that time from 6 p.m. to 4 p.m., and the amendment would also have the effective date of the resolution at July 1, 2020.
Can I ask the sponsors of the amendment to move work sessions to 4 p.m. To explain how in the world moving a work session from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. would help create more input into our work sessions?
Is it I don't know, whose amendment is it?
It is.
I
You
understood
have
that there were
moved it.
multiple
I'm sorry,
multiple
what?
You have
sponsors.
moved it, Mr. Catch, but the amendment is from Councilman Marks,
Okay,
Catch, and Quirk.
yeah, I'll be glad to answer unless
presently.
you want to.
You can go ahead, I'll add.
Okay. I put in the resolution because, well, in 2014, 2018 campaign, one of the complaints I got from many constituents is that the county government was not open enough, that people didn't have the opportunity to speak. And one of the examples they brought up was that the work session was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and many people work. And so last term, I put in the bill to change it to 6. It failed 4-3. This term, I put it in for 6 again. And there was discussion about a compromise. And the amendment that you've just heard is a compromise to move the meeting till 4 o'clock. The thought being that you wouldn't have to take off from work as long in order to come to a council meeting, to a council work session and address the council. This administration is all about openness and transparency. I think last term, this council with the recording of the proceedings, that was a tremendous step in the right direction. This is 2020. The county has well over 800,000 people, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to make it as easy as possible for people to address the council regarding issues that are of concern to you. When the SAFE Act was introduced and debated, I did have people contact me, I can't take off from work, I want to come and testify on the bill. Of course, I told them, just let me know what your view is. I mean, these were constituents of mine. And so, I listened to them, and of course, that bill passed, 2 weeks ago. So I want more involvement of the public. I want the public to know what's going on and have every opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Jones.
I've heard this argument before from my colleague and others, and I would just ask my colleague, when people said, I can't take off work to testify, did you explain to them that they could come in after a legislative session and testify? Did you explain to them that they could send an email in to all the council members? Did you explain to them that they could make an appointment to talk to any council member they like, because we all keep evening hours?
Certainly.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, this is sort of a little bit of a contentious issue among us as colleagues. I think we would agree. And I'm looking out at the chamber. There's less than 10 people here. When we have a hot button issue, people come out, they have a way to talk to us. 5?
There's 5 people here who
There's,
either don't work for the
aside from
county.
press and administration folks, there's less than 5 people. It's 6 o'clock meeting. Are we going to have more than 5 people at 4 p.m.? I doubt it. I'm not sure what your travel schedules are, but I'm on the Beltway at 3 o'clock. The Beltway starts to get packed at 3 o'clock. Who in the world is going to try to battle to get to Towson at 4 o'clock when they can come at 2? So I'm wondering what the real reasoning behind this is, and I doubt that it's transparency. I doubt that it's more citizen involvement. I truly doubt that. I don't think that this is what is behind this bill, behind this resolution. And I have to say that we haven't, in our office, received one mention of this resolution since it was made public weeks ago.
Let me just say.
And hold on, Councilman, sorry.
apologize.
And I will also say that when we deal with controversial issues, the HOME Act, the SAFE Act, last year's budget with the tax increases, all of that stuff, wherever any of us was on that, I didn't have one person, not one person in my district say, Todd, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't have the opportunity to talk to you. I didn't have the ability to make my opinion known. Not one person. Yet we're going to change something that has been in place for decades, and we have a balance between a daytime schedule and a nighttime schedule where people can bring their input. And we're going to change it. I said this in the work session. This is a solution looking for a problem. What are we fixing? There is not a problem to fix. And we have a structure in place that has actually worked pretty well and has served us well. And we want to go change it, and I just wonder what, I want somebody to tell me what the real impetus is between 2 o'clock, 4 p.m., and what is the real reason that we want to do this?
The real reason is because I would like to see our council work sessions more available to the public. Changing it to 4, now I, of course, put in the bill at 6. I mean, you realize that. And at 4 o'clock is a compromise because, as I said, people will not have to take off from work for a longer period of time. If it was 2, they would. Let me just say that I send out about 34,000 blasts on various issues. And so I do hear from my constituents when the SAFE Act was introduced, when the HOME Act was introduced. I can't come anyway because I work, whatever, and they couldn't come in. And so I just.
But they can come in at 4.
I would hope so. Well, some of them are teachers, and yes, they can come at 4 because schools are out like 2:45, 3:15, so the answer is yes. Yes.
Well, I'm going to agree with Councilman Crandall. I've been at this for 9 years. I've never had any complaints about it. And although 2 or 3 of the council members sitting here put blast out over the weekend, contact the council people, this is your time to shine and come in the afternoon and support this, I still didn't get one phone call or one email. So the point I'd like to make again that I made, and I totally agree with you with having more people attend. We don't know that more people are going to attend at 4 o'clock. And you are now excluding a whole group of people that come in the afternoon who are retired. Most of my community association presidents are retired, or they don't work during the day, and they're able to come. Moving it at night, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. The elderly don't like to drive at night, And I don't see a difference between 2 and 4. I just don't, because if you're actually working, you're working until 4, 4:30, 5 o'clock. That's not going to get you here earlier. You can also have written testimony that you can send to your council member. We now televise this, so if you're watching the work session and something, gets your attention, you can call that member and say, this is how I feel about it, I want it on record. I just don't understand. We would have everything really at nighttime. 4 o'clock is evening, it's no longer afternoon. By the time people get out of here, you are going to put them in dead stop traffic going from either side of town. And there's never been an outcry about this. I've never, when we have issues that people want to attend, like when you had the solar issues and farmers were afraid that this could take over all of the 3rd district, there was standing room only. Whether we're talking about rats, whether we're talking about solar, whether we're talking about the SAFE Act, when people want to come, they come. And I'm not necessarily sure they take off work to come. I just think it's an opportunity that they take advantage of. So I do agree with Councilman Jones and Councilman Crandall. I don't know what 2 hours does. And if we go to 6 o'clock and make it 2 totally evening meetings, you're eliminating all the people that come during the day. And again, here we are at a council meeting. It's not bad weather outside. It's not raining. It's not snowing. And there are 5 people here besides the people that work in the county and the press and the police officer. 5. So who's guaranteeing that people are coming at 4?
Madam Chair, I would agree with you, with Councilman Jones, and with Councilman Crandall that 4 o'clock is not an optimal time for a council meeting, for a work session. I think 6 o'clock is. And like Councilman Catch, when I was doing the most intense outreach I could possibly do, I did hear that there was a call for a greater level of transparency, and people did express to me that they would prefer evening work sessions so that they could participate. And it is beautiful weather today. It's actually one of the best winter days I've ever seen. And if I saw the agenda today, it's pretty light, and I had something I could do outside, today would be the day that I was doing it outside, because it's just beautiful out there. So I don't think that the snapshot of today's attendance is the best gauge that we can do as a collective body to kind of sort this thing out. So
Well, we have
I think that 6 o'clock is the optimal time. It's great for transparency. It's great for giving 850,000 people of this county an opportunity to interact with their council members. In an email,
It's even better
I don't
for
know,
you.
I don't have the ability, excuse me, just let me finish. I don't have the ability to see emotion in an email. When I read an email, I can't tell a person, it's pretty vanilla to me. I can't tell a person's feelings. I can, and so, but when they're here speaking to us, I have a much better sense of how intense they might feel, or lack of intensity they might feel, where I can't tell that from an email. Sometimes from a phone call, but quite frankly, I don't field all my own phone calls. But here, it's, they elected us to interact with our constituents, and I feel like 6 o'clock is the best time. I actually seconded Councilman Catch's amendment as what I thought was a compromise. But you're right, 4 o'clock is not the best time, but it was a time that I thought would be, and that I think that some members thought was a good compromise.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Jones?
Again, let me just say this. When there is a hot button issue, of which we will have maybe historically 4 or 5 a year, 4 or 5 hot button issues. My colleague brought up the SAFE Act. If you look at the HOME Act, the SAFE Act, some of those other issues, the cycle normally works like this. There's a press conference announcing that this thing is going to happen. And before the bill is ever introduced, people show up at the council meetings, as they have on these issues, and testified, either for or against these items. Then a couple of weeks later, they show up at the work session. They testify. And then they come to the meeting where we vote for the item. So people have right now today 2 opportunities or 3 opportunities. They could come during the day or they could come in the evening. And what you're saying today is that you want to eliminate the day. You want to eliminate the day, which is going to make it more difficult because there's a group of people that can come during the day that can't make it at night. Now, when we start talking about 850,000 people, let's just be real. Any number that we get in this room, if you compare it to 850,000, would be a statistical insignificant number because it would be a very, very small group. But we've seen large crowds before. We've seen large crowds that come out that's very compassionate and they care about the issue, and we're able to gauge the public's response based on what we see in front of us. This particular issue, I don't see an outcry. I haven't seen an outcry. And the other part that I would say is we're going to eliminate one time during the day. And to me, I'm just going to be like totally honest and unfeathered or unfiltered. It seems like this is a political thing where we want to say, or some people here want to say, oh, I'm making it more convenient for people. When in reality, they know what's in a name. The word work session, I say we make a motion that we change everything we do to a work session. Because that way you can say we have work sessions at night, because this is what it's all about, changing the name. If we change the name, then everybody has an opportunity. When we have legislative sessions, people can testify. They sit there. We sit here. Same people talking about the same issue. But the fact that we want to call it a work session, oh, we got to use the work session at night. My colleagues are being dishonest when you don't recognize the fact that on legislative sessions, people come here and have an opportunity to testify. And the same council members sit here and listen to those people. But instead, we want to change the work session. And we're hell-bent on changing the work session. It doesn't matter what we change it to. We can change it from 2 o'clock to 2:15. We can change it to 2:20. As long as we're safe, as long as we leave here and say, I made it more open and transparent to the public because I moved that work session from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Really? Listen. The other day, I made a series of proposals. And we can do a better job of letting people know that they can come after the council meetings to testify on bills before they ever show up. None of these proposals, allowing people to talk before the council meeting, before we vote, none of these proposals mean anything. Because the idea, the mission is, let's move that work session. I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's doing the best thing for the citizens. And I think we are making it more difficult for people to come here because you're eliminating an opportunity during the day because we assume that nighttime will be better. Well, let me give you my life's history and my life understandings of this issue. People are busy. People working hard to feed their family. They have PTA meetings. They have other things they want to go to. They have sporting events. People are busy. 90% of what we do don't involve them. It does involve them, but they don't need to come here hear about no contract that we're purchasing a couple of pieces of property or the fact that we have some snow contract. They're not coming for that. So 90% of what we do, they're not coming. I go to community association meetings. I have a town hall meeting the other night. 300 people showed up. That's not the normal. When it's a hot button issue, they show up. When it's a regular town hall meeting, I'll get the same old group that'll show up. When I was the president of the PTA, same thing. A regular PTA meeting, people aren't showing up. But if it's a hot button issue, they're going to show up. When I was heading the union or part of the union in Anne Arundel County, same issue. We went through all kinds of stuff to get people to show up. We offered all sorts of things to try to make people show up. People are busy. They trust their elected leaders. when there's a hot button issue, then they show up. So let's be honest, moving this from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, people are going to show up for the hot button issues, and they're not going to show up for 90% of what we do, which is approve contracts and spending within the government.
Anyone else?
And time will tell.
And, Madam Chair, if I may, Councilman Jones, I believe one of the suggestions, I'm not sure if it was your suggestion or if it was our secretary's suggestion, that we take testimony on bills in the legislative session before we vote. And that's a procedural change that we can just do. Am I right, Mr. Bostwick?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that allows people.
That's called a 2 work sessions. It'll be work session number 1
Well, you're
and
all
work
hung up
session
on the-
2.0.
You're all hung up on the name thing, but regardless, if the complaint among our constituency is that they didn't get a chance, so they have it. As you described, there are multiple opportunities to provide input to the council, and the complaint that, well, I wanted to testify, but I could only speak after you voted. So we just procedurally change how we do things and allow people to testify on a particular, like we do in a work session. You want to testify on a particular bill or a particular resolution, sign up and have at it.
I actually like that idea because I have heard that before. Why would I come to a council meeting where I'm not allowed to testify to after you've already voted?
Right.
So that would be something that I think we should consider.
And I've actually, so one of the things that my colleagues, when the Mr. Catch's bill, 3 years ago, Wade, that failed 4-3, I voted for that bill to move work sessions to 6 p.m. But in all honesty, I've rethought it, and I do like the balance. I would mention this, I think this is the third time I mentioned it. I like the balance that we have a daytime session and a nighttime session. There's another thing that we could think about, which is, I don't know how this would work logistically, but you have people come up and talk about whatever they want in a work session. Because right now they have to testify on a particular matter that's on the agenda. I don't know what that does logistically to us or our staff. But I think that, if the spirit of this is more input and more involvement, there are things that we can do that have nothing to do with the time change. Because again, I don't see where the time change solves any problem that's being brought up.
Anyone else? Was this on the amendment? That's my point. Is there a motion to approve? I think we already did it,
yes,
right?
yep.
So now we're going to call the roll on the amendment to 2120.
Yes, ma'am. You have a motion and a second on the amendment that is in play, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. So I will call the roll. Mrs. Bevins?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
No.
The amendment fails?
Pass.
Passed?
The
The amendment
amendment-
passed?
the
I was
amendment
counting.
passed.
Okay, the amendment passed.
By a 4-3 vote.
There we go.
And there is now the bill as amended.
Right,
I'm sorry, the resolution as amended.
yes.
Is there, I guess,
Is there a motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Again,
more?
I
You
think
got
this
more?
is, yes, this
Okay.
is where I'm going to make I'm going to make a motion. Is that the procedure to ask for a postponement that we guess agree? Do we have to do that for resolutions? I know we guess the other thing we didn't talk about up here was the fact that we also have the ability to postpone legislation to vote on it on a later date
right.
when people come forth and.
Right. I think the answer is, Mr. Jones, that the sponsors of the resolution could defer that matter, pull the resolution back, and it can be brought back at a later time. Absent that type of situation, I believe you would want to make a motion for some action on this resolution as amended, and I think from what you're talking about, the logical amendment, or I'm sorry, logical motion would be to do just that, to perhaps defer the vote on this for a period of time.
Can I make that motion, or must it be the sponsors?
You can make that motion.
So I would make a motion that we postpone this vote until the next council meeting. That would, in the interest of transparency and openness, that would give the citizens the same time frame to weigh in on this issue, given the new resolution or the new time or the new amendment as a regular bill. Right now, this is a very short window. All of this has happened within a couple of weeks. So I would make a motion that we extend the vote until the next council meeting to give people an opportunity to weigh in on the 2-hour time change.
And so you've made the motion, Mr. Jones, and I would imagine you're looking for a second,
Yes.
sir.
I'll second it.
Mr. Secretary, please.
Was there any discussion on this? Is there any,
You need more discussion?
no,
Mr. Quirk, you got
discussion
something?
on this,
No,
on this different amendment? It's totally different, totally different.
The idea would be, in terms of discussion, that the idea would be to give this, if we're talking about openness and transparency and giving people an opportunity to weigh in, here's something that we are passing because it's a resolution. We're changing it, and it's only seen the light of day for about 2 weeks. And I would like to have it see the light of day for 4 weeks, is what a regular bill would do.
My feelings are, Councilman, that I know that there was a big email push from members to contact the council on this matter. I saw it on Facebook. I saw it several times over the weekend. I still never got a call, and I still never got an email. So I'm not so sure it's something that my constituency is worried about or looking to change. So I don't know if 2 weeks does anything for that or not.
I understand, because I received one email.
I get what you're trying to do.
I second, Madam Chair, I seconded the motion, not necessarily because I agree with the spirit of Councilman Jones's reasoning, but because I'm waiting for my colleagues to reason with me why we need to do this. And I haven't heard an argument that I'm buying yet. So I seconded the motion so I can get 2 weeks and they can call me and let me know why in the world we need to do this.
And I would just also like to add, and I think I talked about this at the work session, that whether you've been here 5 years, 9 years, 1 year, whatever the situation may be, when you were elected into this position, you knew when the work sessions were, you know when the council meetings were, and you knew what was in the charter, what you have to attend. Those are really the only 2 things that you have to do as a council member in the charter, is show up for these meetings. Everything else is because we want to do it. Constituent services, working with businesses, working with individuals, all that just comes with the job. And I just don't know why you work so hard to get to a job where you know what the benefits are, you know what the times are, and then you get here and you want to change everything because it wasn't the way you did it in your other job. Or now all of a sudden you have another job that is more important, and maybe you can't get from one job to the next job on time. Or maybe you need to coach baseball for somebody. I mean, all these things. Do you realize the families that they're not coming because they are actually going to coach their kids baseball and volunteer with them? That's maybe why they're not here. You know, we have to be considerate of our constituency. I think it's very self-serving because we haven't been given a reason except for saying that our 2 of the members saying that their constituents said that this was a priority for them. I find it very odd that 2 councilmanic districts think that this is a priority and 5 others don't. So I'll just leave it at that.
And Madam Chair, before, we have a motion and a second for us to consider, I guess. Correct, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before we get to that, and maybe the timing isn't perfect, maybe I should wait until we vote on the whole resolution if Mr. Jones's motion does not go through. But one thing that I asked in the work session was, do we have any idea of the additional cost to the taxpayer to move to evenings, to move to, so I don't think there's been any time to talk about or to analyze what moving work session to 4 p.m. does. But my question last week was, what does moving it to 6 p.m. cost in terms of overtime? What does it do? I didn't mention this in the work session, but what does it do to our dignitary police and their schedules? Do we know how much the taxpayers are going to have to pay extra if we move the time?
I don't think we have the actual cost figures, Mr. Crandall, but as you alluded to, there is going to be a cost. There's going to be extra security from the security folks at the entrance. There will be dignitary protection that is here also in the evenings.
And most of those officers or all of them are serving Baltimore County police officers.
Correct.
That have their own shift schedules.
Correct. And then the security downstairs will, I don't know if the contract gets amended or how that will work, but there will be an additional cost to having the evenings, those 2 evenings covered. And then I think the other cost would be for employees that are salaried but perhaps entitled to either comp time or overtime. That could be a cost.
Further reasoning for me to second Councilman Jones's motion. We don't know what this is going to cost. We don't know what this is going to do to folks in various agencies. I think we need more time, so I will third my second.
Councilor Court, did you have something?
Well, I'm just thinking about this postponement. I sort of like this procedural change type of idea where if somebody's at the legislative and they want to talk about maybe stuff that was in the previous work session, maybe we allow some time to do that. I mean, that to me makes a little sense. And maybe we all talk about, is it like a 3 o'clock instead of a 4 o'clock? Maybe there's something where we all can say, okay, we can live with it. Maybe not. But what I'm hearing is there's 3 council members that are really, really adamantly against this, is what I'm hearing. And to me, maybe, in the sake of collegiality, and maybe we postpone this and talk about it a little more. I mean, but I'd be curious to see what everybody else thinks too. I'm just one member, but, I generally, I'm hearing some real opposition. And this is something as colleagues, we should all really try to find common ground on this. And so I'd be okay to talk about it more. I don't know what Councilman Batok or Catch thinks.
Well, I'll be candid.
Go ahead. Who's next? Councilman Patoka.
So if we are able to be collegial in our dialogue, then I would be agreeable to you. But I would say if we can't, if we were as uncivil as I've observed, then I think we should just vote on it and move on to the next issue.
We're being civil right now, talking about it.
My view is that I think we've heard all the arguments against it, for it. I don't think that, I think, people can be against something and can come up with a million reasons to not do it. It doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do, though. As far as costs go, if we're going to open up this government, if we're going to give people more opportunity to participate, whatever small expense is involved, I think it is well worth it. So I'm not going to vote for a delay.
Any other members? So you have a second on that motion for a delay? Call the roll.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Nay.
Mr. Catch,
No.
Mr. Marks. Aye. Mrs. Bevins.
Aye.
I believe that motion passed 5-2.
That motion is to postpone, and we'll talk about it more,
Mm-hmm.
and with the clock ticking like it would normally
Yes,
if we
sir.
postpone it, which generally would be next.
Yes.
Legislative.
February 18th.
So we have more time, and I think, if I could, Madam Chair, I think that does give more people time to weigh in, and I think that respects, three colleagues that I feel like very, really adamantly opposed to this, to talk about it with our colleagues a little more, and I think that's fair. I
Okay.
mean, a
Yep.
couple weeks.
I do as well. Oh, God, where was I? Mr. Jones, did you have something?
No, I guess wanted to thank my colleagues for their indulgence, and hopefully we can get together and come to some resolution. And I appreciate them willing to postpone it, and that'll give the public an opportunity to weigh in on what we're doing.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I would ask that we focus on the issue before us and less on questioning council members' integrities or motives behind this. And really, I think it's for the benefit of the public that we address issues before us and focus on the substance and not on motives behind each individual council member's thoughts, because I trust each of you to give it our collective best. And I just don't think it's healthy to have the kind of discourse that we had prior to this meeting, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And I would ask you just to, all of my colleagues, to take each of us at our word, that our heart is behind this job. I know that I live this job 24/7. To me, it really doesn't matter if we have work session at 8 or 9 p.m. because it's something that I've committed to, and I think that each of us have made that same commitment. So I would just ask my colleagues to refrain from any attacks on motive behind this, and just that we're doing what we think is in the best interest of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Patoka. And just for the record, I didn't have a meeting with Mr. Patoka before this council meeting. And I do agree that what's another 2 weeks when this doesn't become effective to July 1, and I question why July 1? Why does it have a summertime date on it? Why July 1? Whose amendment was that for July 1? Okay, can you tell me why July 1? Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious about July 1.
You're not going to insult me, are you?
When was the last time I did that, Wade? I'm curious about July 1. Why wouldn't it go into effect like any other bill?
To allow the council to adjust, in July, things change. We go to the summer schedule, and then in the fall, we can start this new schedule. We can promote it, et cetera. So that's why.
Okay.
I just didn't think it'd be right to, 2 weeks, it'll be 3 weeks.
Okay.
It'll be 3 weeks from now to start it. That's why.
Okay. So 2120 in itself is dead right now, or no?
No, it is.
Okay,
it is-
that second amendment was separate, and now we're
Right.
going to vote on the bill
Well,
Of what?
the resolution
in 2 weeks.
as amended, because the amendment that Mr. Catch and Mr. Patoka and Mr. Marks sponsored was voted on and passed.
Okay.
So the resolution is now pending as amended.
So we're
but-
done voting.
But you're done
Okay.
voting on that for tonight, and it will be brought back on February 18th
Okay.
for your consideration at that time as amended.
218?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And it'll be certainly subject to your discussion and any other motions or no motions,
Okay.
whatever you all collectively decide.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank
Yep.
you.
After Valentine's Day, so we can pass chocolates around.
Everybody will feel the love.
Okay, Resolution 2220.
Yes, ma'am. Resolution 22-20 is sponsored by Councilman Patoka. This is a resolution to authorize the property tax refund to Mr. Craig Rabinowitz, who is entitled to a refund under state law by virtue of being a disabled veteran.
It is with honor that I move this motion forward.
Second.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on Resolution 2220.
Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins?
Aye.
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Resolution 2220 is passed. Mr. Secretary, is there any further business to come before the council?
There is no further business, Madam Chair.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. As is customary, anyone who has signed up prior to the meeting with the secretary is allowed 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Secretary, are there any speakers signed up this evening?
You have one speaker this evening, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Diane Seltzer, could you come forward? I'm sorry. Did I pronounce it wrong? Sessler, I'm sorry. Have a seat, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yeah.
I am here to represent parents, students, alumni, and members of the surrounding community of Parkville High School to bring attention the situation of a 21-year-old sex offender attending our school. I am not here to debate whether one man is guilty or innocent. That decision was made by an impartial judge, and a verdict was rendered, and that is a matter of record. Any law is only as strong as we allow it to be. So when we allow anyone to make exceptions, exemptions, and excuses and create loopholes, the law is rendered moot, and any justice afforded by that law is nullified. The victim that found courage to bring her rapist to justice had that justice ripped away when she saw her rapist flirting with 14 and 15-year-old girls in the cafeteria during lunch at school. Those students that sat next to him in class were robbed of the expectation of protection under the law. Even the rapist himself, who was given probation and a chance to change his life, had that chance snatched away from him. Because the law was ignored and he was allowed to return to school, he was put in contact on a daily basis with the one thing that could and did send him to prison. Was his right to an education worth his freedom? Could he not have enrolled in night school classes currently being offered at Parkville High School? He would have had his right to an education and would have been in class with adults to whom he posed no threat and who posed no threat to his freedom. Did Principal Astorita not understand the impact of ignoring the law and allowing a convicted registered sex offender to attend school? Does she not have the common sense to understand that the law expressly prohibits registered sex offenders to have contact with children for a reason? Does she know what she has stolen from the students of Parkville, all of the students, by ignoring the law, even the law of Baltimore County school system, which prohibits a sex offender from going to the same school or riding the bus with his victim? You see, there was not just one law that was violated and ignored in this case. Even the letter that she wrote granting him permission that was within the law of Baltimore County school system had an expiration date and was expired at the time he was arrested again for rape. Someone with this obvious lack of common sense does not belong in a position of authority in our school. Please help us in Parkville bring justice to all of those impacted by this horrible circumstance, and help us to restore our faith in our school system. Please listen to us. Investigate these violations of laws further and take steps to make sure this doesn't happen again, here or anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually,
Madam Chair?
can I,
Well, I'm sorry, Councilman.
can
No,
I,
after you,
can
sir.
I go first?
Mrs. Sessler, thank you for coming in and expressing your views.
That's mine.
I know Councilman Marks has been working on this issue, Councilwoman Bevins as well at Parkville. But as a parent, I'm the stepfather of a 14-year-old that attends a Baltimore County public school, just started in 9th grade. And this scares the living daylights out of me. And it should the rest of us as well. And I'm hoping that the school board, the superintendent, the administrative staffs can go to work on this issue and make sure and ensure that our kids, when they're sent off to school, that they're safe. It's one of the most basic fundamental parts of a public school system is the kids are safe while they're in school. So, I mean, I really feel for you, and I feel where you're coming from, and I'm disturbed by our judicial system that lets a convicted murderer out of prison, serving a 30-year sentence, serves less than 4 years, only to come back to a Baltimore County public school and rape an 11-year-old. That happened in my district, and I'm disturbed by a judicial system that lets someone who burglarizes 8 cars in one day and is arrested in one precinct only to be let out the very same day and goes and commits the very same crime in another precinct 4 more times before they're arrested, and they're out the same day. So we have some serious questions to ask of our judicial branch, and I appreciate you coming out today and making your thoughts known. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crandall. I actually represent the Parkville High School, and I was heartbroken and felt helpless about the situation. And what really saddened me is I didn't go to call about it. I read about it on Facebook when it happened, so I was kind of the last to know. I hope there will be policy changes for sure. I don't know how something like that could be allowed to happen, and I'm sure there's enough fingers to be pointed at many people, but it was a very unfortunate incident that should never happen again in any of our public schools on any level. So thank you so much for coming in tonight and sharing your frustration. Councilor Marks.
Thank you. I will concur with the comments made by my colleagues. This weekend, the superintendent finally addressed this issue with us. When we met with him in October, I think all of us expressed concerns about what we see as a culture of permissiveness in the school system, a lack of discipline, and it is not only affecting teacher morale and affecting the climate of the students that we're supposed to be supporting, but it is also, in many cases, leading to assaults. I mean, I can recall Loch Raven High School last year where a teacher was assaulted, and that's really scary. I want to thank you for testifying tonight, and I do know the school board is looking very closely at this, and I certainly hope that not only do we have changes in the discipline policies for the school system, but also communication. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Anyone else have anything to say?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
I just want to thank you so much for coming out to testify. I remember watching this story on the news, and I was shocked. I was like, there has to be some crazy explanation for this somewhere, but I haven't heard an answer yet. I do know that we have other alternatives in terms of providing education to students. We have where we send people to your home to educate you. We have night school, so we have alternatives. I'm not sure what the decision was in terms of allowing this student to be in the school with others. And then hindsight's always 20/20. The fact that the person went and committed another crime is proof positive that it was a poor decision. So I thank you so much for coming out. And I say this all the time. I say it all the time everywhere I go. I am so proud of you as well as us in terms of Baltimore County government, where we give citizens an opportunity to come here and say whatever's on their mind for 3 minutes and engage us. This is something that you cannot do anywhere else. You can't do it in the state legislature. You can only do it if they invite you to testify on a bill. and you can't do it in the Congress. But here at the county council, you can come out, sign up, speak on any subject you want for 3 minutes, and I think that makes us better. So thank you for coming out.
I got, Madam,
Madam-
yep.
Yes,
Oh,
Mr.
After
Catch.
you, after you.
Yeah,
Mr. Catch was first.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just outraged when I read about this rape. I was in the school system from 1970 to 2000 and taught in 3 areas of the county, and we always felt safe. People in the community felt safe. And what is going on in society in general is very, very disturbing. I was happy that our police are taking a look and have a strategy to combat crime in Baltimore County. I would hope that our school system, the police, and the courts, that there is some dialogue that's going to take place in the future. When I taught, you were not allowed as a teacher to contact the police department. You had to go to the main office, and they decided whether or not to call or not, which I think is, I just don't think that's right. You know, the real, when you know, I wish I could say that I was surprised when I heard about what happened at Parkville. However, with all that's going on in the world, in the state, et cetera, I guess I wasn't surprised. And that's a sad commentary that I would believe that in our county and our state and our nation, all over the world, that things would deteriorate to this point. I don't know. I'm sure that you've spoken with the members of the school board about this, and I would assume that your school board member, I don't know who it is working on it. Obvious. Who is it?
Lily Rowe.
Oh, Lily Rowe. Okay, so I hope that the school system is taking a close look at their regulations, and with the help of the county government, the police, et cetera, to resolve this issue, to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, to make sure that people in Baltimore County will feel confident when they send their children to a Baltimore County public school, that this school is going to provide a safe environment. I mean, that goes without saying. So thank you, and I thank you for your coming here tonight, telling us. And if there's anything that any of one of us, I know that Councilwoman Bevins and Councilman Marks are working on this. If there's anything that you think that any of us can do, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone
Mr.
else?
Catch, if I can,
I think
I'm sorry.
Mr. Quirk was next. Councilman Quirk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real briefly, I do think this could be a good opportunity for the county council to meet with the superintendent again. It's been several months, and I think just having that consistent, whether it's every quarter type of meeting, or maybe the superintendent can join us again for lunch. But I think these are issues that we should have direct dialogue on. And I mean, Tony Bazemore, I think, does a wonderful job. He's always in touch. So I do think very highly of Tony Bazemore. But sometimes there are issues that he's not even informed about. Like Lansdowne High School, we didn't have heat. I didn't find it out except through my constituents. Canesville Middle School had some threat that turned out to be a non-event, but I'm hearing from parents. And I think maybe the communication flow could be a little better. And I think perhaps maybe we can invite the superintendent in again, and maybe it's just consistent quarterly having lunches. And just because I think we hear about things so much all the time, and then having that open communication where we make sure that the communication flows go, and would be great.
Councilman Crandall?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll try to be brief. I agree with Councilman Quirk. I think that a dialogue between us and the superintendent is necessary. And as Mr. Catch was speaking, it dawned on me that the conversations that I've been having with teachers, coaches, people involved in at BCPS, teachers aren't always informed when a student is placed in their class that they have a criminal record, they have a record of disruption or just criminal activity. The teachers in the classrooms aren't even aware. So this is something that if I were presiding over a classroom, I would want to know if someone is a potential problem, and our teachers aren't always notified, and so I think that's an issue that needs to be discussed with the superintendent, as Councilman Quirk suggested. So make it happen, Madam Chair.
Okay. We will. We'll get that on the
I
calendar.
know you will.
Anyone else? Well, this concludes tonight's council meeting. I wish all of you have a nice, safe trip home, and please remember the Backish family and keep them in your prayers. Thank you.